The Fred Wolf version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were selfless heroes, as in many other franchise adaptations. But there were times when that unconditional love for saving the city was put to the test. The humans always took the turtles for granted, which sometimes demoralized them. That is, until one occasion when the turtles had to rely on the humans to save their lives. Today I'll review the 1993 episode Night of the Rogues. David Wise wrote this classic episode for the 7th season of the show. The season needed to close as many plots as possible to leave room for a new, darker tone in the following year. As the name implies, this episode saw the return of 5 of the Turtles' greatest foes and introduced 2 more. The Rogues were 7. Tempestra, voiced by Gail Heidemann, Rat King, voiced by Townsend Coleman, Antrax, voiced by Pat Fraley, Chrome Dome, voiced by Peter Renaday, Scumbug, voiced by Barry Gordon, Slash, voiced by Pat Fraley, and Leatherhead, who in this last appearance was voiced by Peter Renaday instead of the usual Jim Cummings. But that wasn't the only replacement. Townsend Coleman, who also voiced Michelangelo, took over the Shredder role until the season's end. The replacement was because James Avery had to leave the show mid-season due to scheduling conflicts with his other remarkably successful show, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's worth mentioning that Antrax and Scumbug are here as old enemies of the Turtles, but this was their first and only appearance in the show. I'll explain a little more about them later. The story started with a demoralized Raphael, who felt betrayed by the humans they tirelessly helped. This sentiment stemmed from an interview with the police commissioner, who attributed the decreasing crime rate solely to his efforts. Splinter tried to help Raphael feel better by telling him that doing good was its own reward, and that someday he might realize he needed the help of the humans more than he imagined. As usual, Splinter seemed to have read the episode's script beforehand. The action moved next to the Hall of Records, where Krang, Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady were trying to find a section of the original 1895 city sewer plans. The Turtles intervened, leading to a chaotic scene where Bebop and Rocksteady inadvertently buried Shredder in tar. Despite this mishap, the villains managed to escape with the plans, thanks to their drilling module, leaving the Turtles puzzled about the incident. Intrigued, they asked April for help figuring out what the villains wanted with the Hall of Records, and that was when they found out about the missing plan. Despite this being a successful mission for the villains, Shredder was fed up with the ineffectiveness of Bebop and Rocksteady, and he decided to ground them. In order to get better assistance, he resurrected an old creation, Chrome Dome. He later started recruiting other known foes of the Turtles, like Tempestra, Slash, Scumbug, Antrax, Leatherhead, and the Rat King for assistance. I'll delve deeper into the backgrounds of the new characters, but notably Antrax was Krang's loyal executioner from Dimension X, known for his decapitation method, a grim nod to the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. Shredder's plan was for the Rogues to terminate the Turtles. However, Krang had a less ambitious goal. He simply wanted them to distract the Turtles while the Foot Clan excavated the sewers. In exchange for their help, Shredder promised them a share of the riches they were about to unearth from the sewers, except for Chrome Dome, who was just following orders. But what was Krang trying to find underground? According to the records, when the builders excavated the area, they hit something hard enough to break their drills. Krang clearly had some suspicions, like you would, that there was a space pirate ship filled with treasures buried there. But I'll return to this point later. With the excavation now solely in the hands of the foot soldiers, Shredder left to confront the Turtles.
You Turtles have humiliated me for the last time!
Really? Are you leaving the show?
This confrontation pitted our heroes against their greatest enemies. Despite a valiant effort, the Turtles were outnumbered and forced to retreat. The Rogues quickly realized that they would never be able to find the Turtles in the large and complex sewer tunnel system. So Tempestra devised a better plan to draw them out by tearing up the city. The Rogues split into 3 groups. Chrome Dome and Antrax went to the stock market building to destroy some statues, Slash and the Rat King decided to steal the oldest pizza shop in the city, and finally, Tempestra and Scumbug attacked the Channel 6 building with Leatherhead, who took Vernon as his human pet. The Turtles were warned about the attack thanks to April, but Raphael didn't take long to figure out that this mayhem was a ploy to draw them out of hiding and suggested letting the humans handle it. After all, they wouldn't expect them to save them. However, his brothers disagreed, motivated by the danger their friends faced and their inherent sense of duty. Meanwhile, worried for their boss after a prolonged silence and fearing he was in danger, Bebop and Rocksteady broke out of the Technodrome to find Shredder. Meanwhile, the Turtles made the strategic mistake of separating to deal with 3 concurrent attacks in the city. Leonardo fell to Chrome Dome and Antrax, Mikey was defeated by Rat King and Slash, the other 2 were captured by Scumbug, Tempestra, and Leatherhead. Following Shredder's plan, the Rogues left the Turtles trapped inside an Exterminator mascot statue with the Vaporizer, a device capable of dissolving the entire structure. Having lost contact with the Heroes in a Half Shell, Splinter, April, and Irma realized they needed extra help to defeat the Rogues. With April's help, they contacted 2 of the Turtles' allies, Casey Jones and Zack. Because when your friends are about to be vaporized, there's no better help than a maniac detached from reality and a preteen.
Hey, I'd do anything for those turtle dudes!
All I want to know is, when do I get to break something?
Beneath the streets, Krang successfully found the starship of the legendary space pirate, Captain Logos. The vessel crashed there 1,000 years before the city was built, not to be confused with that other ship that was buried under New York. As expected, the ship was filled with all kinds of treasures that were plundered from every corner of the galaxy. To remove it from underground, Krang planned to use his tractor beam to resurface it. The Turtle allies started following the Rogues, as Splinter was expecting to capture one of them to tell them about the Turtles' whereabouts. They finally got their wish when Chrome Dome broke ranks to recharge. After a swift fight, Zack managed to get the location of the Turtles from the android's memory. They also learned they had only 6 minutes and 21 seconds left to save their friends. The situation looked bleak for the Turtles, who began to share Raphael's pessimism about humans not reciprocating their efforts with the rescue. However, this despair was short-lived as Zack and Casey Jones heroically saved them. With mere seconds to spare before the explosion, they threw the vaporizer bomb into the ascending starship, destroying both the ship and its treasure. The Rogues were shocked to see the promised riches blown away, and started blaming Shredder for not delivering on his promises. This was ironic, as the loot was vaporized because they also failed to deliver on their promise. Nevertheless, it's hard to reason with a group of maniacs, so Krang and Shredder had to escape their irate former allies. Fortunately, Bebop and Rocksteady showed up in one of the modules and took them back to the Technodrome. Since they were no longer getting paid, the Rogues went their separate ways. As a result of this adventure, the Turtles learned that they needed humans as much as they needed them. Well, perhaps with the exception of Vernon. As mentioned earlier, Scumbug and Antrax had supposedly encountered the Turtles in previous episodes, but these episodes don't actually exist. Scumbug was created by Ryan Brown for the Playmates toy line in 1990. The character debuted the same year in the Archie Adventures. In both origins, he was a human exterminator who accidentally mutated while helping Shredder with his cockroach problem. Although David Wise's version looked identical in terms of an exterminator turned roach, this origin wouldn't make much sense in the context of this story, as both Antrax and Scumbug hated pest control companies. But perhaps this would have more to do with the fact that at least Scumbug seemed to have an affinity for cockroaches. On the other hand, Antrax was created by Dan Berger and Michael Dooney for the toy line in 1991. According to his bio, he was the only executioner from Dimension X, rather than a loyal one, before Krang recruited him to eliminate the Turtles. Night of the Rogues marked the last appearance of many classic characters. Zack, Tempestra, Leatherhead, Slash, Scumbug, Antrax, and Chrome Dome never returned to the show. However, Chrome Dome recently made an appearance in the Saturday Morning Adventure series, a series that takes place in a spin-off universe of the Fred Wolf cartoon. In that story, it was explained that his remains were sent to TCRI after his defeat, where Professor McGuffin couldn't help but put him back online to make him run for mayor of New York, because why not? This good intention backfired on him, as Chrome Dome was pretending to not be evil to win the elections and rule the city with an iron hand, figuratively and literally. With the professor's help, the Turtles ended Chrome Dome, despite him winning the elections. It was probably a somber day for democracy. The Rat King was the only rogue to return before the show's conclusion, which was covered in another video. In conclusion, the episode acknowledges something that's always present in the show, that the turtles sacrificed everything to save the city, despite being outcasts of society. And since doing good was its own reward, they at least could count on some human allies to help them. This theme would return later, more recently in the Mutant Mayhem movie. So what do you think? Who's your favorite rogue? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, see you in the sewers!